You gotta move your camera over a little bit to get everything else.
I think we got everyone.
It is cool if I'm not in the shot.
Mike is, and you got it on my head. That's fine. Yeah.
So I will not look at the live chat. I'll look at the corner there. We'll be fine. So yeah, every now and then you guys will have the option of, instead of looking at us, you can look at us there.
Yeah. Nice delay.
Or the microphone.
Yeah. Messing with my mind.
New shadow puppets.
Okay,
cool. I can hide from the camera. I'm happy.
Okay, so guys, don't be as attentive. We'll bring the mic test that you're doing right now. So bring the mic closer. If you're too loud, it's easy for me to cut you down. If you're not loud enough, it's harder for me to crank you up. There's only so much I can do to help you.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll make it work.
What's that?
Hello.
And
I gotta get pretty close.
Oh yeah. We didn't bring a talking board. No, we're good.
you guys already did it.
That was yesterday.
Thank you very much. So, welcome everyone to 102 Video Production. This is a continuation of the panel that was happening yesterday night, 101 Video Production. In that panel, we were mostly talking about equipment and how to make the wonderful videos that you all are excited to make. This panel is part 2 of a 3-part panel across the entire weekend, in which we are going to be discussing mostly editing software, the editing process, conversion software, file formats, all that fun good stuff. Much like yesterday, there is sort of a Q&A back and forth going on here. I believe there's a hand mic right there. If you guys don't feel comfortable shouting your answers at us, then you can walk up to the microphone and ask them that way. So we'll kick things off. There's quite a few more of us today than there was yesterday. So we'll start off at that far end there with some quick introductions.
Hi, I'm Lee. I work on Arcadia, and I've done work with Digino Gaming and Game Theory.
I'm Naveed. I'm also on Arcadia.
My name is Chris. I run Vangelist.ca, Vangelist Reviews on YouTube. I cover a lot of toy collector stuff, Transformer stuff, robot stuff, tokusatsu stuff, and I also sprinkle some video games in because that's the fashion nowadays.
My name's Dan, also known as Dan the Video Ninja. Many of you probably have seen me slinking around in the background throughout the years here at ConBravo. I do a lot of video work for them, as well as professional work at a media distribution company downtown. And I also do Let's Plays and Twitch streams online as well.
I'm Jeff. I run Mother's Basement, which is a YouTube channel where I talk about anime mostly, sometimes film, sometimes video games. I like to focus on the scene composition and editing and stuff. So this is very much my wheelhouse.
Yes. And I'm Jimmy Sunder. I run my own YouTube channel. I'm a full-time freelance video editor and producer. I worked with people like Jaywitz, Shoku, The Dex, That One Video Gamer, a lot of the gaming and Pokemon side of YouTube.
Can I just get a quick fist in the air for freelance video people? Yeah.
All 3 of us in here.
Only 3 of us talking. Yeah!
Yeah.
Yeah!
You're hiring a bunch of you guys.
Rock!
Yeah. I mean, not you guys specifically,
Right.
but I love freelancers. They're great.
So disposable. Such good scapegoats.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
It's really not.
So yesterday we talked about the production side, a lot about equipment, and so we're not going to be really fielding questions about that. If we have extra time tomorrow after 103, because we'll have a lot of time, we can kind of do Q&A for catching all of whatever remaining questions there are. Also, these panels are being recorded and hopefully will be up, so if anyone has missed anything from yesterday, don't worry about it. It'll be there.
We got you.
But we're going to start off talking about post-production. So the idea is you've got your footage, you've got your audio, your video, and you're looking at the big folder, and you hopefully have edited. That's not happened yet. You've hopefully organized it, so it's all real clean and easy to go through. So let's talk about straight up editing software to open up, because that's kind of the core of it, right?
Yeah.
And one term you might hear, and don't worry about it if it's weird, you might hear the term NLE. That means non-linear editor. That literally just means a timeline you can edit on without having to do it all in order. It's an extension from the old days of actually cutting film. And if you do want to do that on a digital level, there is a piece of software called Avid, which was designed as a crossover software for old-timey cut and chop editors.
Avid is often considered the great granddaddy of all nonlinear editors. It is, it's a beast.
It's the great speed bump of any film school education. But it is worth knowing, because it's kind of like how when you learn programming, they have you do stuff in BASIC, so you know how that works. And that sounded like a lot more shade on the edit than I meant for it to be.
Make
But,
no mistake, it's an industry standard, and it is very much a powerful tool when you're in a facility that has all the resources available to facilitate purchasing licenses, purchasing rigs that can actually run it, purchasing servers that can do all the rendering, purchasing all the LTOs or whatever hard drives you're storing all the footage on and everything. Yeah, I'm tape-based.
But we're going to talk first about the bottom level, which is what you guys may already have, and that is probably, is it still the tag team, Windows Media Maker and iMovie? Is that still the...
Any hands up, anybody who uses that? Nobody. Good. All right, so we don't have to start the bottom. Perfect.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah, I thought maybe we'd go around to see like what editing software we all currently use.
Yeah.
Starting over
Let's
here.
start down at the end there.
Yeah, I use Premiere CC.
The Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been using Sony Vegas for a while, and that's what I'm used to, so that's what I'm using.
I've primarily been using Final Cut 7, which is old now. We're hermits. But I've also been reaching out to get myself learned up on Final Cut X and Adobe Premiere, because really the more you know, the merrier.
Yeah. At home, I'm also a Final Cut 7 old school hermit, but throughout the course of my day job and my career, I've had experience with Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, Sony Vegas, also Avid and the new Avid First, which I believe is the new free version that consumers can maybe get. I've also dabbled in a little, I use Sony Vegas at home for a lot of video game stuff as well because it plays nice with a lot of my capture cards. And I've dabbled in a lot of the little like no-name ones that just come off of somebody's website, like open source stuff or whatever like that.
I use basically the whole Adobe Creative Cloud, but I mean mostly Premiere because it's just simple to plug anything that you need into it, and it crosstalks with everything else that Adobe makes. So if you know how to use Photoshop or Flash, not that anybody will know how to use that in a couple of years, but if you know how to use any other Adobe program, it transfers over really well. And Adobe Bridge and Adobe Media Encoder are amazing tools for anybody who is not working with a high-end render farm.
Yes.
And has to do stuff on their own computer.
Pretty much like most of the rest of them. Adobe CC is what I use. So Premiere Creative Cloud and everything. And like you said, it integrates really well with stuff like After Effects, so it's really easy to make flashy graphic titles that just seamlessly go into your project. I also have experience with Vegas, but that's quite a few years ago, and Premiere 5.5 and 6, which I used before Creative Cloud was an option for me.
I think we should stress that like what you're using is a lot less important than how you use it.
Yeah.
Because I've known people who've made amazing things on super entry level software. Like,
part of the reason I wanted to go through all the software we use is to make the point, which is the software that you should use is the one that's available to you and you're comfortable with. I was telling these guys, no one is ever going to backtrack your hits, figure out what your editor is, and then start giving you guff for it. No one's going to think less of you if you make an amazing
should anyway.
Yeah, like if you make an amazing video and then someone says, "What'd you edit in?" You're like, "Oh, Movie Maker." They're not going to go, "This video sucks." You know, like it's
they're going to be like, "How did you do that?"
Yeah, I would be impressed.
Yeah.
And if they do say that, do not listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's all its tools.
It's
basically.
tools. And it comes down to comfort level, availability of resources, financial resources, or whatever rigs you have or whatever equipment that you have available to you. Use what you have available to you. Use what's comfortable. Don't let anybody tell you, like you said, that you can't use it because, you know, learning some of this other software, a lot of people will probably slide into the mentality of, well, if you do it with this piece of software, you have these options and it's, you know, you can use these tools and these tricks and everything. And you know, if you are willing to learn all that stuff, that's great and everything. But if you want to start, if you're say locked into a schedule or whatever, and you just have the software available to you and you can crank through it and it's comfortable to you, then just stick with that.
Go ahead. The one point that I'd add to that is if you don't already have a software that you know inside and out and you're comfortable with, I would recommend starting with Adobe just because it's got that free trial, which is really nice. And as far as workflow goes, the GPU-assisted rendering and other quality of life features that they have in Premiere make it much faster to get something out on a computer that somebody's likely to have in their home compared to a professional editing rig. Like if you don't have 8 cores or 6 cores, like if you only have a 4-core processor, you're going to run into some problems rendering out without a GPU assisting it. So that's the one thing I'd add.
It's also worth noting that the Premiere, if you learn Premiere, then you're like one step into learning most every other editing software.
Yeah.
It's got like the very basic layout that you're going to see everywhere else.
Yeah.
Premiere also has quite a few tools involved in adapting shortcut keys from other programs. Like there is settings in the preferences that you can go in and you can like set the shortcut keys to match those of say Final Cut 7 or some of the old legacy editing programs. So say you are old farts like us and you're using that and you want to transition into Premiere, then they've eased that transition process for you a little bit, because nothing's more frustrating than having to jump between different editing programs and having to remember which shortcut keys do what in different programs. Trust me, when you're bouncing through 6 of them on a daily basis, it gets confusing.
And the other nice thing about it is once you know Premiere, it's very easy to jump over into other software that you might need to use. Like After Effects has a steep learning curve, and it always will. Just because it's so powerful, but stuff that you learn in Premiere transfers over to working with Photoshop's UI, it transfers over to working, especially with Flash, if you've got any interest in doing animations for your thing, and you don't want to do After Effects because you don't want to do After Effects. It's just very powerful, not just for what Premiere itself can do, but for what the entire Creative Cloud suite can do.
I don't know like how well other programs do this too, but like with Premiere, it's super easy to just set up your workspace however you want. Mm-hmm. So I have like a 2-monitor setup. I want a 3-monitor setup, and like I have like an effects panel, like an entire monitor is my like.
The windows are very customizable.
Yeah, it's very like modular.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. We're not going to spend the whole hour, by the way, trying to promote Premiere.
Yeah, but I do
Don't
want to
worry
say
about
though,
that.
like if you're looking for like an actual job in the video production, like a lot of places do ask for like Adobe. They want you to know Adobe. Obviously, it's good to know as much as you can, but Adobe's that one.
You can think of Premiere as like knowing a word processor if you're applying for like a clerical job.
Like Adobe's usually like the basic qualification, and their like preferred stuff is like the Avid and like,
it's only recently that Final Cut X has kind of, because a lot of networking editors got their hands on it to fix it pretty much post-launch.
When it first came out, nobody liked it.
Yeah, it's been about 1.5 to 2 years being basically Adobe stepped in where Final Cut 7 used to be for a lot of production houses, and it's like really planted its hooves down and taken hold. Like it is like one that I see on freelance job postings constantly. We have an Adobe setup, so please know how to use it.
Yeah.
So I brought some examples. Maybe get them out of the way and we can get back to conversing.
Yes.
I brought a couple screenshots of an editing timeline. It's Final Cut 7, but it's you'll know what it looks like if you see it in any other editor as well.
These are the video tracks, these are the audio tracks. They look the same in just about every other program.
Yeah. So I want to know what would be better for you guys. Would it be better to see the edit timeline then the clip, or the clip then the edit timeline? Let's just do the timeline then the clip then, because I numbered them that way. So I'll make this a bit bigger for you all. I'm using preview because I'm hot stuff.
Yeah.
So this is a project I made about 1.5 years ago, and this was a sort of dramatized opening sequence. This is sort of an intense thing. As you can see over here, one thing that I recommend is always keep your stuff nicely organized. It's really easy to sort of just pile your elements in and then get going. But if you make little folders and everything, and just kind of micromanage your project up front.
Put footage in one folder, put sound effects, music in one folder, put graphics in one folder, name them all accordingly. Take the time. Like most of your cameras will record footage with serial numbers or just strings of whatever. Take the time to go in and look at each one of those clips and rename them. You will save yourself a lot of headaches down the line.
Yeah, it's basically organization up front will make your life a lot easier, especially if you hit the end of the project and you go like, oh, I want to change something. If everything's like a big just mountain of stuff, it'll suck. Also, I don't do it in these reviews really, but if you are working on something intensive like that, duplicate your timelines, your sequences.
Version them.
Yeah, make tons of versions, because also it sucks if you're like a week into an edit, you're like, 3 days ago I preferred the way this bit looked, and then you're kind of stuck. Also, down here in the timeline, I also like to be a little organized, where I don't like to have tons of. I say this, but I don't like to have tons of layers unless they're necessary. And then if
says the guy with 7 or more audio tracks.
we'll get there, yeah. If I do end up needing a lot of layers, I try to have a system to how these work. So like this top layer is almost all dialogue. These next 2-3 layers, or pairs of layers, are all sound effects, and I usually like to put the music layer at the very bottom if I can.
Yeah.
That way it's easier for me to look at. Also in this software and all other softwares, you can, with these buttons down here, change the size, the height of these little blocks.
Yeah.
So you can make them shorter if you want to see everything, or taller if you want to focus on a certain spot. But yeah, especially over here where there's an effect shot, if we go to the next photo, you will see there are in fact 13 layers of audio and 4 layers of video. But if you see here, the 4 layers of video are mostly because of this explosion effect, which is just a super cheapo chroma key effect I downloaded like 7 years ago, and I just recolor and stretch it and put bloom effects on it all the time.
It's amazing how much mileage you can get out of just going to YouTube, punching in special effect green screen,
Right.
and finding like an explosion on a green screen that you can just rip from that, throw in, knock the green out, and they're off to the races.
But before I play the clip, one other thing I want to make note of, if you look down here, this is all just simple cutting. This thing is almost entirely, aside from that one effect shot, it's just cutting, and every now and then inside these clips, I'll keyframe maybe the clip moving in and out within the frame of the clip. If you're shooting on like something that's shooting up to like 1080 or so, or a DSLR, you can, for YouTube, zoom into a clip, sometimes up to 150%, without really losing a ton, or at least you don't get pixely enough for it to stand out. And sometimes I make use of that so I can shoot wide and then sort of move the virtual camera around a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the extent of the editing in this, though, and I feel that's important to say, because often when I put together things like these, people think I'm using animation programs, and a lot of it is just camera motion. So I'll play the clip now. Hopefully this will not be deafening, but we did a sound check, so it shouldn't be. This is some robots. Don't know if you guys like robots.
Gentlemen, let us seize the day. Scramble assault with pleasure.
Some of those other glowy effects I forgot about. Those are just little filters that were on the clips, but it wasn't anything crazy.
So most of the camera shots in that was you actually moving the camera around, right?
Just waving the camera, yeah.
So that's why when he says it's all cuts, there's no like transitions, no like wipes or no in editor pushes or whatever. That's all just cutting to another shot that starts with the camera moving, and then it gives the illusion of a transition, like a motion transition.
Yeah, and a lot of those sequences are also the sound. Like you saw, I had that many layers of audio. It's surprising how much you can imply with audio if you're doing something that's like dramatically oriented. If you're just doing like talk to the camera stuff, you don't even need to worry about that. But you can still accomplish a lot with simple cutting.
Yes. Especially if you are willing to move your camera around. If you've got Steadicam rigs, or if you are willing to like do a lot of the movement in optics as opposed to trying to animate it in After Effects or Premiere, you'll get way smoother motion blurs, and you won't have to render so much, which is the bane of all of our existences, or at least mine. I don't know about you guys. Anyway.
There's also something to be said about if you're just shooting on a tripod, because I know that's very common for people who are starting out.
Yep.
There's still really cool stuff you can do. I had one more clip I can show here.
All right.
This is from an educational video I made for BC government. Why is it
you're opening getting stream clip. Nice.
That's not supposed to happen.
How many people here use stream clip?
What is that?
You guys don't use stream clip.
I think I have stream clip because of some footage I got.
Oh, wow.
and I never untied it from being the default.
We'll get into
voice.
conversion programs like Media Encoder and Compressor, and Streamclip is one of the ones that I'll mention. It's not as prevalent these days as it used to be, but
I think Handbrake sort of takes.
yeah, Handbrake I guess.
Handbrake is just a Swiss Army knife for everything that you might need.
Yeah.
It's free.
So if you guys are just shooting like yourselves, like on tripod, even if you're doing like in-character stuff and you just have your tripod in your chair, there's two things you can do. First, you don't have to just be sitting talking straight to the camera. You can still composite a shot. Like in this case, we've got him slightly off to the side, little rule of thirds going on. Yeah.
Don't have yourself dead center in the camera and everything. Photography people will tell you about rule of thirds and everything. Put stuff behind you that's kind of cool, whatever.
But there's also something I like to do, which is called cutting on action. It is one of the simplest things that very few people know about until you learn about it, like in film school or out of a book. And basically, what you're going to see is I just have two shots that are on tripods, but it's a cut on action just to add a little bit of dynamicism, and it's just to change up the visual, add a little bit of flair. And you can do this even in vlogging if you need to like pause for breath or something. So I'll play this bit here. So that cut right there. So the way that cut works, it's called the 60-30 rule, or the 80-20 rule, depending on what it is you want to do. But basically, if you want to cut on action, you basically cut either right at the start of an action, like in the middle of the movement, but near the first 20% of it, or you wait till the end of the opening 80%. So here it's like I cut it just as he's turning his chair, and it makes the human brain process the motion as one single motion, even though it's across two clips. It's such a simple thing you can do, and like if you're doing a vlog and you're speaking to the camera and you know you want to pause for breath, you can say like, anyway, next up, then stop your recording, change your angle a little bit, and then if you did this, just start your next clip with like, anyway, next up, and then like cut during the clap. Like a clap, adjusting, like any kind of just notable body motion can allow for a cut on action, and it's really powerful without costing you a dime. And it can make your vlogs look more powerful, it can make reviews look more powerful, just anything that's on tripod.
You will want to take time to trim out taking breaths and everything, especially if you're talking to a camera and you're not comfortable like talking in long-winded sentences without needing to take breaths. I've been doing vlogs for years and everything. I cannot do vlogs without stopping and thinking about what I'm going to say next and taking like 10 minutes to think about it. And I've got that nice 10 minutes of footage of just me sitting there thinking. That has to go. You can't say that. So
And, like,
that's what it is.
Everyone does that.
Oh, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah, like they're like Philip DeFranco does that.
Yeah, that's true.
He uploaded a couple long time. Yeah, he uploaded a long time ago, like a video of him just like.
Yeah. So I assume a lot of people in here are wanting to get into at least a vlog sort of thing, or maybe doing Let's Plays or whatnot. The point is, you're going to be in front of the camera, you're going to be talking. If you want to edit it down, edit out your ums, your ahs, your pauses, and whatnot. It just keeps everything tighter. You always want to make your videos shorter than as short as they possibly can be, because it's YouTube and things are Snapchat, everything has to go quickly and whatnot. You don't want to drag things out because you're going to lose viewers.
Editing out the ums and editing out the ums and ahs also makes you like seem smarter.
Yeah, a lot of people have told me. A lot of people have commented on my videos and told me that my vlog's like, how do you talk so fast? Like, I'm not talking fast. If you hadn't noticed, there's like an edit every other sentence.
Yeah.
But if you like, the Vlog Brothers are a good way to say it. A lot of some of you've seen them. They edit real fast. They talk really, really fast, but they do a lot of edits as well, and just makes them sound like they're going super fast. Philip DeFranco, like you said, also same thing. If you want to sound like you're really, you know what you're talking about, or whatever, write a script out. Take a few takes of doing it. This is for podcasting too. This also works if you got podcasting and you want to cut up the audio. Get a few clips of you saying the one phrase and getting it exactly how you want, and then cut around it. That's if you're in the editing.
That's pretty much for like anything. There's so many clips of me doing the same line.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this take is like way better than the other one. I listen to it back and it's like, this is exactly the same.
I will have a sentence written out and it'll be like, all right, this movie contains a lot of action and everything. I'll be like, this movie contains This movie contains
So you know what I do to help myself as an editor? Because if I'm doing live audio, sometimes I'll leave some of the ums in just because it flows with my natural voice.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing, by the way, especially if you're doing a podcast. It's so easy to want to cut out every and you can do it for about a year, and then you start to hate editing your podcast.
Yeah.
But something I do whenever I'm reading a scripted thing and I fumble, I actually will go like, paintwork on the head is. The paint workout, like I put in a snap so that when I look at my audio timeline, I don't even have to listen to the wrong takes. I just see, I see these spikes.
Yeah.
I do that a lot too. I make mostly scripted content. Like I don't really do vlogs. I only sit on camera for about as long as I can memorize a set of lines, which is the way that you get around doing jump cuts.
Right.
Yeah. Which I don't like doing jump cuts because I feel like it's cheating, but they're totally okay. The Vlogbrothers and people like them have made it okay to just jump cut. You don't even have to do that cut on action thing. But yeah, one thing that I have taken to doing whenever I'm doing my voiceover and whenever I screw up a line recording my live action bits, which is a lot, is I'll just clap, and that creates a spike in the audio that makes it really easy for my audio editors, because I hate editing my own audio.
Yeah.
So I pay other people like $30 to do that hour of work that I just don't want to do. If you can do that, I would advise doing it, because listening to your own voice is the worst thing in the world.
That's not me.
Unless you occasionally will get these like weird mutants like me, and I identified this a few years ago. I like listening to my own recorded voice, which I think is why I'm still editing my own Transformers podcast. Because I know that this is not common, because almost every other person I ever talk to, especially if they're on a podcast for the first time, and I'm like, hey, here's a clip of your dialogue back from the podcast. They're like, oh God, oh no, delete me, remove it.
Yes. We have some questions over here. Or sorry, I saw some hands up.
We got lights, so we just see the hands.
Yeah,
go
we
up.
just see hands go up. Questions.
I have one more little tip for the jump cut style that I think can really, again, add that extra bit of garnish. Because cutting on action also.
Oh, are you going to talk about L edits?
L edits.
Okay.
No. The thing I talked about before, where when you shoot in wide, you can probably zoom in up to about 40 or 50%. If you shoot a vlog and you shoot it wider than you need it, something that I've done for some vlogs is when I need to pause or stop, every time I do a stop, I just will zoom in that bit or zoom out that bit. That makes the jump cuts like 60% more invisible, and like because I find jump cuts a little distracting.
Yeah, that's absolutely
the mentality.
Yeah.
The mentality behind that is like, say you fumble a line or you want to make a little joke or whatever. Very often, if you're in a conversation with somebody and you want to you lean in and be like, oh, but by the way, it's also like this or whatever. It's the same kind of mentality. If you zoom the camera in, it's kind of like you're bringing the audience a little closer, so you can sort of make it a little bit more intimate, and then you can pull back to go back to what you were talking about. That's kind of the mentality behind doing that.
But you do want to keep it subtle, like going from 100% to about 130.
Yeah, you don't want to go up the person's nose and then come back down.
I ended one once where I was like, oh, on my jump cuts, I'll just go from a wide to a close-up. But it was like, so next up, when I'm at ConBravo, I'm going to be at these panels. It's going to be pretty fun.
I mean, that got a laugh out of you guys, so you can do that kind of exaggeration as a joke, but don't try
to do. If you
to...
actually lean in like this, that's great. But if it is just a cut like that, all it will do for the viewer, even if it's just unconsciously, they'll just be like, pardon me?
It draws attention to it. You never want to draw attention to your editing. Good editing should always be invisible. You should never draw attention to any of your edits.
Like I did some editing on a couple board game reviews recently, and the intro was just it was my client Jay was just talking about the board game and just having it here, and he filmed it all in one take, but just cutting on any sort of pauses or breaths and making a zoom from just 100 to 105%, and it's the slow zoom, and then when he finishes the line, cut back to 100. It made it flow so well without having to have that jump cut where he looks like this and the next frame he looks like this. It's a very, very simple trick. And also on the audio, I didn't get to cut it. I was too scared to. But
do it!
You guys are so powerful. With the whole cutting out red stuff, that's gonna sound really tedious. And it is.
It's worth it.
I make 6-minute videos and the audio timeline is 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And cut out your bad takes and cut out your breaths. It's going to sound tedious at first. When you get the hang of it, you'll be able to cut out breaths without listening to your audio. You'll be able to look at your audio and say, that's where I took a breath, and just highlight it and delete it, and you'll play it back and it'll sound perfect.
Very often you get used to scrubbing to the beginning of the take, the end of the take, and say, was that a full take? It's good. All right, in and out. That's good.
Yeah.
That works in tandem with the snapping thing too, where the snapping lets you know where your mistakes were, But then you will, and this is a weird thing that's true, if you look at audio waveforms enough, you will start to even know what words look like. And so you'll know, like, all right, because you might forget, like, when I snapped, did I restart the entire line or did I pick up from that word? You just look at the waveforms, like, oh no, that's me saying I was. All right, so I started at the start of the phrase.
Words that start with hard consonants, like T's and K's and everything, usually will have a nice spike at the beginning of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm sure that we can all on this panel say that we know what the phrase, what's up, guys?
Yes, indeed.
Mine is ladies and gentlemen, but yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I say about cutting out your breaths before I get to that is you may not want to cut out the entirety of your breath.
Oh, yeah.
What I like to do is I like to just cut out the middle of it so it sounds a lot shorter because breathing is a natural part of speaking. I used to cut out all of my breaths from everything, and it sounded really weird because I was talking super fast and I wasn't breathing at all. And it was like, what is this guy? Is he a robot? How's he doing this? I don't know. And I can't even do it in real life. It doesn't sound anything like that.
Think of Yahtzee's reviews.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy he was one of the kings of cutting out his breaths. That's why he also speeds up his vocals a little bit too. That's why he sounds like he's talking like the Micro Machine guy.
I mean, that's why his show's called Zero Punctuation.
Exactly.
That's the editing style. Makes it
Exactly.
sound like there is no punctuation.
But it doesn't sound natural. If you want to sound natural, if that's the aesthetic you're going for in your video, then you might want to leave some breaths in to make it depends on how you speak and how you talk and when you take breaths and whatever. If you just naturally have a gift of being able to talk like the Micro Machine Man, then you don't have to worry about it so much, and you will probably get work as a voice actor at some point in your life.
I feel like you can cut out those breaths, but having so the way I edit my videos, I do scripted content and I do sentence by sentence for my scripts. So that allows me to cut out breaths, and also I can pace it well. Like I can just place the audio where I want it to make it sound better, so it doesn't have to be like right after each sentence. Like so that makes it sound a little better.
With that style, what I find is like sometimes I'll even just like stop looking at the monitor. I'll just play it back, and then surprisingly, it can be literally a one-frame adjustment that makes you go from sounding like a robot to sounding like you are speaking naturally.
Right.
There might also be that one-frame pop that you might have to get rid of at the beginning of a hard consonant that you can just trim out and it makes it sound like it goes in a little bit better.
Oh, if you get into keyframing audio, there's all kinds of fun you can do to like manipulate the English language.
So this is something that just occurred to me that's an important tip for if you're filming yourself talking like I do for those rare bits at the beginning and end of a video. If you've got like scripted content that you're recording into a microphone and you don't want your video to sound like crap, the easy trick that I use is I put my Yeti microphone right next to me while I'm recording the video, and then I just clap at the start of the recording, and that gives me something to sync up. If you're using Premiere, another pro tip working with that is there's an option to scrub your timeline by audio time units instead of frames, and that allows you to
samples.
It's audio time units is what it's called in Premiere.
Okay.
And you can, like, if you're working on time units instead of frames, you can sync up that audio exactly, and it won't sound like you're suddenly underwater whenever you switch to your DSLR and the crappy Rode shotgun mic you bought for $20 with it.
And that's something we did at the start of the panel that is, I guess, worth mentioning. Is if you were there yesterday and you ended up using like something to record your audio separately rather than straight into the camera, very common practice. It's why they have clapperboards. We've got a clapperboard over there. The clap is like what I do is I'm also just used to this so much that I just hand edit it. So like, there's the clap. It's one frame. But this actually helps with your organization. It's maybe from yesterday, but when you clap, also say what you're going to do. Because if you just have
Audio
a bunch of files,
slate.
like, even if it's just like Rid Optimus Prime Review 1, Rid Optimus Prime Review 2, my segments from my script. That will save you a whole lot of time as well later on. Like if you know what it is.
A lot of editing advice is basically take like 5 seconds while you're filming and 5 seconds while you're importing to organize stuff and have a clear delineation of what you're working on, because you can't fix it in post.
No. Everybody always says that, we'll fix it in post. Yeah, you can't always fix it in post.
Well,
not without your editor wanting to kill you.
Yeah, if you pay me enough money.
Yeah, exactly.
I've fixed things in post where I made like $500 because they did bad makeup.
Well,
but
yeah.
then they also were out $500 they could have paid us to do more interesting things.
Or hire a makeup person.
Yeah, there are some dumb things you'll end up editing I was working on a TV show called Canadian Better Living. We had times where like makeup was wrong, and so they sent it to post, and then we'd spend 2 days keyframing, around someone's face because the makeup was okay on one person, but not on the other one. Or someone was like, "Oh, I got a blemish. Can you remove the blemish?" And we're like, "Well, we can."
The glorious part of post-production, going in and getting rid of blemishes or scars. Or
we can remove your blemish for about $500. Because I can sit there and make sure frame by frame it's gone, but like I'm not going to like you, and I'm going to want lots of money.
Yeah.
Technically you can fix lots in post, but especially if you are operating solo, you're filming, you're the talent, and you're the editor.
Take the time in pre-production.
You can develop literal self-loathing if you end up abusing editor self.
Yeah.
You don't really think about editor self all that much, especially when you're starting off, because
You guys never recorded a message to your future self while you're making videos?
Oh, yeah.
Like, leave that part out, that was garbage, and I go
Don't
back and
ever do this again.
Yeah. It's the safe kind of speaking to yourself. Like when you stub your toe and you're like, "Damn it, bathtub," or
Mind if I jump in about the?
Hell yeah.
This was a little while ago. We were talking about like the sound of yourself and hating it.
Oh yeah.
The secret to that is take the time to mess around with the effects in whatever audio editor you're doing.
Pitch effects.
Yeah, no, I use a parametric equalizer.
Yeah, EQ.
Compressors and equalizers.
Yeah, take the time. Go look up some YouTube tutorials. I promise your audio is going to sound so much better.
Probably better than the YouTube tutorials you're looking up.
Please work on this stuff. This is a joke we did yesterday. I'm not doing it again.
And you can save presets in a lot of these things. So I just have my 4 whatever presets for these audio.
For compressors, when I'm doing Let's Plays and everything, I have a Blue Yeti microphone and I have a compressor that's live on it. But you take it into Vegas. Vegas has got some compression presets and things that'll noise gates, compressors, limiters, and everything to sort of keep your audio balanced. Because when you're playing video games, you're going to get excited at parts, or if you're a ragey type gaming or whatever, you're going to start screaming and yelling or whatever like that. You got to make that audio not sound like garbage. And to do that, it helps to have a good mic that has a good dynamic range. The Blue Yeti mic, we were talking about this yesterday, is fine for USB microphones.
Yeah.
So, invest a little bit more, you get a better mic. But anyway, once you've got the audio, and that's that. What do you do with it once you're in the post-production? You have to do the best you can. So you take it in, you use those limiter filters to use noise gates. And a lot of these things are, when I first started trying to use them, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I see 1 billion dials with 1,000 different numbers, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So just put your audio, what I did was what everybody should do, is put your audio in there, mess around with stuff until it sounds good, and then save that as a preset, and then you just throw it on your audio every single time, and you're off the
It will make your audio go from "Hey guys, what's up?" to "Hey guys, what's up?"
I got a vindicating story, by the way, if anyone has messed with EQ and compressor and not really known what's going on. I went to school, and the lesson on stuff was literally... So a lot of people, including most of us, don't actually know what most of these... We just know what numbers with compressor. I know ratio is 3, attack time is 1, release time is 300, and then I play with the limit in multiples of 3 for the most part until it starts hitting -6. I do have a good tip for EQ though, especially, does anyone here make videos where you put music under yourself? All right, got a couple here. So here's a tip, because I do that a lot, and I tried something actually recently, I should have tried a while ago, which helped a ton. So what I do is I take my vocal track, because audio is basically, to put it bluntly, is in there's high, there's mid, and there's low. And then there's kind of a gradient in between all of those. So on my voice, I take the low and I dip it down a bunch. I take the high mid and then the mid high, and I put those up a little bit. Then on the backing track, I take all of its top half of its audio, put those down, pump its bass up, its low end up a little bit, and that way my voice and the music, they form like a jigsaw puzzle. And when you play it back, you don't run into the thing where you're kind of fighting against the music, and then often, what I usually do is just bring the music down.
Yep.
But then that just means the music is quiet.
Yeah.
This way, if you jigsaw your waveforms together a bit, you still want the music to be kind of quiet, but this way
it's more bass heavy, it's more low heavy, so that, you can hear it, but it's not like the high percussions, especially if you have something that has a lot of high ends in it is muddied a little bit because the audio is meant to be in the background and noticeable, but it's not meant to interfere and get in the way of what you're hearing from the vocals.
And the high end of your vocals is where a lot of your consonant noises are. So this means that basically the music gets its bass, you get your consonants, and it just forms a nicer audio picture.
Yeah.
That's a bad metaphor.
It's really easy to do that in Premiere by just using a high pass filter on your voice and a low pass filter on the music and just adjusting them accordingly, making sure they're not too powerful. So you can do it in audio editing programs, but it's also very easy to do in video editing programs as well to achieve that same effect.
Most video editing programs come with the bare basics because as video editors, that's all we really care about. We're not sending stuff off to audio engineers for like sweetening or whatever like that because we don't want to pay thousands of dollars for that sort of thing.
Another nice thing about Premiere though is if you really
We're really not shilling for Premiere, honest, just so you know.
Man, Vegas is great.
If you have heard the amount of times, like in a call, Jimmy and I have been like, man, I freaking hate Premiere. This stupid program, industry standard.
To be fair, Premiere, like, didn't Creative Cloud, they had an update in the last couple of years where there was this one real big problem with the update, which was, I just heard about this from a friend of mine a little while ago. Cloud had an update come out that they fixed, but when it came out, it kind of wiped your footage.
This is why you back up your footage.
Yeah, this is why
as soon as you take your cameras home from whatever shoot that you're doing, don't even transcode it, don't do nothing to it, put it somewhere else. Copy it somewhere else away from your editing suite, on a hard drive, on a cloud storage, or somewhere away from it, so that it is locked away, preserved exactly how your camera recorded it.
I would, like bare minimum, just leave it on the SD card until you're actually done making whatever video you need it for.
There's horror stories down at that end. Yeah, I can tell.
Who doesn't? Right?
But I mean, advice for literally anyone working with literally anything on any kind of computer: back it up and then back that up.
Add redundancies and version your projects, version your footage even. Like how many people have like timelines like final version 2, final version.
I swear to God, this is the final version. I'm gonna kill myself.
I'm gonna kill myself, final version.
I'm gonna kill myself, final version 2.
Exactly. That's a joke, but there's a reason that's a joke because
and
we
then the
all
project
do it.
file.
It's so real.
And then the project file that you send off to the client.
Right.
You want to see something dumb? So I just worked on something for clients. So I have V1 here, and then they wanted some changes, and what I sent them for changes was V3.
They were like, wait a minute, did you skip what's on some stuff?
I'm like, y'all don't want to know what happened to V2. I have to keep it.
Another nice thing about Premiere, I know I keep shilling for Premiere, but it does auto-save in versions.
It does auto-save versions, but it's also, does it put them in a vault, like somewhere hidden somewhere? Because
but you can adjust that. That's actually something I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
When you make a new project, there's a big screen that looks like a bunch of nonsense that just says scratch discs and it just has like some random path. Change that to somewhere that you can get to because my solid state drive filled up with 140
Oh, don't put that on your boot drive.
Don't put that on your boot drive. Don't put that on an external drive either, because if you're unplugged, then you're going to load your project up and it's going to be like, your files are missing.
Although I will say, if you can afford it, put your scratch discs on an M.2, because the faster the drive that you're reading all of your reference files from is, the faster you'll be able to scrub your timeline, and the faster your editing will work.
If you've got a nice big robust SSD that you can put your footage on, and your editing process, when you're in your editor, then you won't be like, you try to scrub through it and it won't go like, it'll actually scrub through it nice and clean. I see a hand up over here.
What's a scratch disc?
So scratch disc it's terminology, but basically the editor calls the scratch disc the hard drive from which it's pulling the footage. So like in my case, because I'm on like a MacBook when I do a lot of my editing, and a lot of people think I'm insane. Especially because I started on here, so I do editing still on the MacBook monitor, even though I've worked on 2-screen setups.
Well, it's a laptop. It's meant to be mobile, so you have to get used to that.
So I mean, one of the advantages of the MacBook is that it's got one of the best color spaces of any like monitor that you can buy.
It's got a nice monitor.
Which if you're getting into the professional end of video editing, you need to worry about color grading, and having a good monitor is 100% necessary for that.
Yeah, scratch disk is where your footage is stored.
For example, on mine, I have an external that is my scratch disc. So that's where all the footage lives. And so, like he was saying, I need to have that external plugged into here, or I can't actually turn the program on without it starting to yell at me, going like, "Yo, where's the scratch disk?" It's like you left my lungs out.
Yeah.
Just real quick, we're moving like 1,000,000 miles a minute, and if you have a question, just raise your hand.
Throw your hand up.
Yeah,
Stop dead and answer it. Go for it. But yeah, the scratch disks are important. Most editing programs, when you fire them up, like Premiere and most of the other programs, they will, like, it'll say new project. What do you want to call your project? Where do you want to save your project file? And where do you want to set your scratch disk? Most projects will let you will give you a startup screen that will tell you that to do that automatically. They may not even let you open a project without setting it.
Yeah.
And just so you know, most of these programs will default to putting that on your boot drive.
Yeah,
Don't
do that. Yeah, because also your boot drive, which is maybe where the application is living, it's just everything runs a little smoother if your footage and also your render files go on the scratch disk as well.
Yeah.
Because when you render stuff, that is creating duplicate, basically video, to put it in like general terms. And you don't want that on your boot drive either. Because also your boot drive, if that's where the application is, it's already running the application. So if it's running the application and having to pull and push footage in and out all in the same hard drive, everything runs a bit less smoothly.
Yeah, because I mean, we're getting highly technical, but
slow us down.
The life of a freelance editor.
Right. Your hard drive can only read and write so many files sequentially, and even if you're working on an SSD, which has standards that allow for multiple sections of the hard drive to be written at once, you're still going to run into the problem where it's like, oh, we're trying to read this and load it in the RAM, and then moving. It will work better. It will just work better if you've got a second hard drive to do that, and especially if you've got a mechanical hard drive that you're working with. Yeah. That can only read one sector of data at a time because it's got a little head that reads ones and zeros, one thing at a time.
There's only so much data that you can pump through the pipe at one time.
If your computer is made of pipes.
Yes.
Just one more question.
Yes,
Boot
of
course.
drive means the drive that's in your computer, right?
Boot drive is where your OS boots from. Like when you turn your computer on, the guts of your computer looks to the boot drive to find this is where the OS lives, and this is where I started up from.
If you're looking for it, it's whichever drive on your computer has System 32 on it.
C drive.
Yeah. Usually C drive.
Usually C drive
in the Windows realm.
Yeah, unless you custom change the settings when you're installing Windows, it's going to be.
There's another question next to you.
Yeah. If I were to get an SSD for a scratch disk, what would you recommend for capacity?
Capacity as high as you can afford, but they won't be cheap if you go very, very
like. We're not at that point yet.
Well, I mean, you can get Samsung 850 EVO 1 terabyte, which won't read as fast as like the highest end Samsung, but still reads at like 250 megabits per second, I think.
What does that cost?
It's like $250.
Yeah.
Like SSDs have gone way down in price because there's a new format called M.2, which is basically a chewing gum sized hard drive that slots straight into your PCIe lane. And the reason they've done that is because it can theoretically move files at 5 gigabytes a second. Theoretically. Right now it's only 2 gigabytes a second, which is still really, really good and more than you need for any video editing project. But those cost like 50 cents a gigabyte. So probably less than 19 cents a gigabyte.
So shop around, look for sales. Canada Computers often has lots of sales on SSD drives. Even the big box stores, they've clued into the fact that hard drives, portable or computer or otherwise, like H hard drives, spinning disk hard drives, are going to be phased out within like the next 10 years, and SSDs are the new hotness. So a lot of people are getting hip to the fact that that's where we need to start, pumping out sales for and everything. So just shop around, look for, get what you can afford.
There's nothing wrong with a spinning drive. Just like don't make that this is going to be my lifelong editing drive.
Yeah, spinning drives. There's nothing wrong with them, and they are definitely cheaper. But they do come with a couple of drawbacks. They don't read and write as fast, and they're more prone to failure if they are used over a very extensive period of time.
They're good for storage and stuff.
Yeah. Like I use a lot of them for backups, and when sales happen on hard drives, I'm like, all right, if I can get a good deal on like a little stack of 2 terabytes, then I can tomorrow start doing my backup process.
Like when we were saying, with backing up camera footage, like raw camera footage, hard drives are great for that because you're not reading and writing to it constantly while you're editing. You're just, I'm going to copy, paste, wait for the little bar to finish, and then it's done, and it's there, and it's good.
It can also be a good place to like store your source footage because ultimately, like the scratch disk is storing reference files that allow your computer to work with that footage separately. But doing that will require that you have a fairly high amount of RAM in your system, which is the RAM is where your system stores what it's working with right now. So if you have a lot of RAM, you can make up for having a somewhat slow hard drive. But if you're finding that editing is slow, the main tip would be just get the biggest SSD that you can, and it will probably cut the time that you're spending scrubbing your timeline.
Some free advice there too. Yeah, clear your cache.
Clear your cache.
After every video, go into the options in whatever video editor you're using, clear your cache, because like hundreds of gigabytes can add up.
I have a story.
I'll even show for Adobe on this one. Adobe has an option right in the options menu that says push a button, it will clear your cache for you.
Because with Final Cut 7, not only am I going and hand deleting most of my render files, but guess what I found? I've been wondering what my hard drive is doing for the last, it turns out, 3.5, 4 years.
Render files, audio render
files.
So
that's all going in an external. I directed it there. I went and looked online, and I finally saw this thing that said, go show package contents on Final Cut, the application. So I did, and there were 48 gigabytes of render files in there spanning 5 years, including yesterday from the day I looked at it. And I'm like, I looked at those render files on my external yesterday. Why are they here? So I wiped it all.
Because Final Cut likes to be sneaky and back things up.
If you don't know, cache is like...
Adobe does much of the same thing. It does have little hidden folders that you need to actually use administrative powers to show hidden files to get to that will have hidden scratch disks.
The more editing that you do on computers, the more you will find your hard drive space seemingly mysteriously filling up with files that you just can't find. They're not in your scratch disk. They're not anywhere in your storage drives. What the hell's going on? It's these hidden little files. They make these editors to just do that without telling you, so that it gives the illusion that it's doing all this stuff magically and fast without no problem whatsoever. What it's really doing is doing a lot of work and thinking and putting a lot of temporary files that it's just hanging on to, storing it in secret little locations to make itself seem smarter than it actually is. What it's actually doing is filling your hard drives and giving you headaches.
For up to 5 years, it's hanging on to some of these files on projects I haven't opened for 4 years.
Exactly.
And I almost wanted to. I wish it was a living thing, so I could take it aside and just go like, "Why did you do this to me?"
If editing programs were living things, we'd all be in a lot more fistfights.
Speaking of going fast, aside from hard drive spins, it's worth mentioning workflow. And if you're working with an editing program and you like it, one thing that's worth looking up if you haven't is what the hotkeys are.
Shortcut keys and hotkeys.
Because I spent 3 years...
Or make your own.
I spent 3 years in Final Cut going to click a button, then going to click to cut a piece of video. And then I went to a class, and they were like, oh, you just have to push B. And then suddenly I was editing 10 times faster.
How much did you pay for that class?
It was just like it was like a class at university that I was taking as like an elective.
Okay.
And then it was a video course. Most people there, I have another story from that course too, but most people there weren't even that interested. And I just mentioned to the prof, I'm like, I noticed that you were just sort of turning on that thing. And he's like, yeah, push B. And I was like,
it was worth it. Whatever you paid, it was worth it.
Yeah, there's my tuition.
Yeah.
It's worth, the more hotkeys you can get the hang of, the better. That's why, Adobe even lets you import these custom hotkey settings, because I'll be coming off Final Cut 7, and I go into Adobe, I'm like, all right, B! And, the thing I want to have happen doesn't happen. So
something else will happen, and then it'll, change something, and you're like, what just happened? And you press the button again, and it doesn't change back, and now you have to root through all the menus and figure out what it is that you just did.
The downside of it, has this happened to any of you guys, you go to push a hotkey and you misclick something,
and you hit a different hotkey,
and then you don't know what key you hit, but then something happened and you don't know what happened.
Learn your hotkeys, customize your hotkeys how you're comfortable. Very often, most fast editors will tell you that they do the one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the mouse sort of thing. Knowing what hotkeys to push on here and then being able to point with the mouse and everything will really speed up your workflow. And customize your hotkeys how you feel comfortable. Like I said, Adobe allows you to rechange them to match other editing programs, but most programs, Avid certainly does, most of the other ones probably do, let you just go in and they'll bring up a virtual keyboard and let you just customize whatever pull-down menu selection you want and bind it to whatever key you want, including using the function keys like Alt or Control or Shift or whatever. So you have 3 keyboards available to you. You have all the keys plus all the keys plus Shift plus all the keys plus Control plus all the keys plus Control and Shift and so on and so forth. So if you're comfortable with Control this to do this thing or Shift this to do that thing, or do you want to make it more like that? Then go and customize your keyboard and then save those settings to your preferences. Then you're off to the races. And very often, if you're a freelance editor, you can take those preferences with you to other workstations that have the same software. Like say you have all your keyboard keys, shortcut keys set on an Avid station, but you're working in a post house that has 4 different Avid stations, and you have to bounce between them all. They're all networked, whatever, but maybe all your preferences aren't saved. Take your preferences with you on a stick or whatever like that, plug it in, you got all your preferences, and you're off to the races. Works wonders for freelance.
Yeah. The basic idea is like that you don't have to, you want to think about the edits you want to do, and if you know your hotkeys well enough and you get into a good enough flow, you think of an edit and it happens. It's kind of like high performance Tetris. Like they're not actually looking at the buttons, they're not thinking about pushing the buttons, they're just thinking piece flip, piece flip, piece flip. Just it starts going, you synchronize. Yeah. Sorry.
How long do we have on this panel?
We have till 3.
We have till 3, so we've got another 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Questions are still welcome, by the way. Just throw the hands up. We will jump back to whatever topics we were talking about before, whatever.
Got one back there.
Way in the back. Shout. Or you can come up here to the mic.
So as far as backups are concerned, do you find cloud storage is viable in any way?
Cloud storage on backups.
So I've thought about that a whole lot. The main thing I found with cloud storage is for the ones that are affordable to me as like a consumer pleb, it's not too viable only because usually cloud storage is like, all right, we'll give you like 2 gigabytes for free, and then we'll give you 10 gigabytes. And I'm like, well, when do I get to 2 terabytes?
Yeah.
And when do I get to the part where I'm already using 6 terabytes of 2 terabyte
Yeah,
drives?
and like I pay like $10 a month for a terabyte of Google Drive, and like even that, it's not quite enough. And also you're going to be storing it on your computer anyway. Like,
oh yeah, you don't want to work off of a cloud storage, because that will start.
Because the cloud will go down,
and your bandwidth,
or your bandwidth, your internet bills will skyrocket. If you are like as editors and everything and dealing with higher and higher resolution footage, we're into the age of moving past HD footage now into like 4K and 8K and 6000K or whatever. You know, storing those big giant files online, you're going to be doing a lot of bandwidth traffic, trying to get those files to and from whatever you're doing, especially if you're trying to edit from them. So we're not at the age yet where like the information superhighway is that we can do that. Everybody, like a lot of salespeople want to think that we're at that point so they can sell this stuff more to us. But as consumers, you know, cloud storage is something to look into. I would suggest.
I think it's great for backups.
For backups,
project files,
reasonable sized files, but I would not rely on it 100%.
Yeah, the other thing, like speaking of 4K footage, just that branches us into something else, which is.
Does that answer your question, by the way? Okay, cool.
If you're thinking about working with 4K,
don't.
Your computer can't handle it.
No.
That's like
your TVs can't even handle it. That big TV that your uncle bought us. It's a new 4K. You got ripped off.
4K cameras are way too expensive right now. I mean,
like on a consumer level.
Yeah, like you can get a consumer level DSLR that can handle 4K.
Like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then it shuts off. We were talking about that yesterday. All the cameras that we had so many people being like, "Why does my camera record for 5 minutes and then turn off?" It's because
I mean,
they introduced that feature just to put the 4K logo on the box so that they can sell it to you.
But there are phones that do 4K pretty well.
Exactly.
I've got a Google Pixel, and that does 4K footage pretty well. But the other side of it is, if you actually try to work with that footage, I've got my editing / work rig has an i7 7700K. It's also a gaming rig because so it's got top of the line for when I built it, and now it's sort of mid-range NVIDIA.
2 weeks later.
Intel chip, and it's got an NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti, which is the fastest graphics card on the market right now.
Where did you find that?
No, you can get the TIs pretty easily because nobody uses them for Bitcoin mining.
No.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you're in the market for a graphics card, I'm sorry, but somebody is making a Bitcoin with the one that you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I've got the highest end graphics card on the market. I've got a ton of RAM in my system, and I would probably need 2 of those graphics cards to even like scrub my timeline comfortably with 4K footage in there at half size.
Yeah.
Because
in draft resolution.
Yeah, and rendering it out is going to take you a month.
And there's nowhere you can put it. Like
Stupid.
It's stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid. If you have high quality audio and 720p video, it's just going to sound worse than low quality audio on a 1080p video, and it's going to sound way worse.
And as we talked about yesterday, if you're going to sacrifice something, sacrifice video over audio. Audio should always be superior to your video. So your video should be good, but your audio should be good.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are benefits to putting out 720p in that you can render it faster, but if you've got the time, put it out in 4K, and I'm putting the air quotes because it's just a 720p or 1080p video that is probably not even upscaled. But that will just tell YouTube that for the people whose network connections can handle it, to send them better audio data. Because YouTube's just like, we only care about video quality. That's the only thing that is going to change the bit rate of your video.
The only guy I know on YouTube in my little circle of people I know who is literally only one person I know who makes use of 4K in a way that seems viable, because he uses it mostly for visual artistic reasons, and he puts a lot of time and effort into it. This guy, his channel is Seren Zephyr, and he does a lot of Toku stuff. You can tell him I said to ask him about Yokai Watch things, because he had a period with Yokai Watch, but he does a lot of stuff that he shoots, like he spent a lot of money on his rig, on his system. He shoots beautiful videos in 4K. He's also the only channel I've seen myself that has justified the use of 4K in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
There is one that I've seen, which is Linus Tech Tips. They're a tech channel, so they built their own server bank to do the rendering and most of the work for them, and they because they have an excuse to talk about quadros. Sometimes they get sent a couple quadros that can help them work with these things. Quadros are $6,000 versions of the graphics card in your computer that are a little bit more stable and won't break if you try to.
Before we go down the rabbit hole, we had another question.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead. Right up front. You still have the question? Did we answer it? Yes, no?
We got one over there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you guys were talking a few minutes ago about hotkeys. And,
Sure.
Other than just simple like cutting the footage or cutting the audio, what kind of hotkeys are you guys using like on a regular basis?
I got a little list. Like there's the cut hotkey. There's also the slip tool.
Slip and slide tools.
Slip and slide tools.
Yeah.
That's where you know how you saw on that timeline. Here, I'll bring it up again. How those footage pieces, they're all kind of in blocks.
Yeah. So you have like a 5-minute piece of footage, and you've only used the middle 30 seconds of it in your timeline, but you want to use a different 30 seconds, you can just like slip the footage underneath it.
Yeah.
So that it stays in the same place in your timeline, but what footage you're using changes. That's
So, like,
a slip or a slide. I always
Like this block here. This is like a piece of a longer piece of footage. So if I want this clip to still occupy this same space, and I just want to change what part of the clip it's drawing from, like what part I'm seeing, then the slip tool will take, if the actual clip starts here and ends here, and I'm only showing this bit, the slip tool will move that start and end point over here, so that I don't have to like recut the clip and put it back in. Like it keeps its place in the timeline if I don't want to change the length of it, and I just change what bit of that clip I'm seeing.
So that's one of the shortcut keys that very often use. I mean,
there's also audio linking ones.
I use one that I actually figured out myself. I don't know if you guys use this often, but in Audition, when editing audio, I found myself using the normalize to -0.1 option all the time, which just brings up your volume across the board until something hits the -0.1 decibel peak. So it just makes your volume as loud as it can be without peaking.
Okay.
I use that a lot because if you're working with audio and you're quiet or whatever, you can bump everything up and then you can cut out your background noise from there with various other tools. But it's not bound to anything. It's in a favorites bar, but it's not bound to anything. So I took off some really weird hotkey that I was never going to use, and I made it like Shift Control A. So now whenever I'm working, I'm rapidly hitting Shift Control A, like level different sections. So
just go with like shortcut key, or make shortcut keys for whatever tools you're using the most. If you're adjusting audios using the pen tool a lot, then you'll want to have like a pen tool. Learn what shortcut key is the regular selection tool, like your default like little mouse pointer, because very often a lot of the other selection tools will change what your cursor does when you click on somewhere. So it's always nice to remember to know which one sends it back to just a cursor,
Yeah.
because it differs from programs to programs. When I jump between like editors and After Effects, it changes in it.
I think in Adobe stuff, like they have like the toolbar with everything, and you can like highlight the tool.
Yeah, there's
and,
tooltips.
like, yeah,
if
and
you ever need to
it'll
find
like,
a shortcut
yeah.
key for a function, just hover over it, and a little tooltip will come up, and it'll usually have the shortcut key listed.
Yeah.
There's also one I use a lot for audio in Final Cut, which is like there's one thing to raise and lower by 1 decibel, and another one to raise and lower by 3 decibels. And for whatever reason, audio tends to work in multiples of 3, I find. Like it's -12, and moving in sets of 3 gives you the most noticeable change, and then moving in sets of 1 gives you that subtlety.
Yep.
So learning how to like change the level of a clip up and down with keys is also a lot easier than like dragging a slider around. Or,
This is just like a general tip for if you're binding your own hotkeys. If your editing rig is also your gaming rig, which I assume will be the case for a lot of the people in this room, because
can't afford 2 computers.
Right.
yeah, it's more like, oh, what nice happenstance! I can play nice games on my thing for work.
I can write my my nice gaming rig off on my taxes. That's pretty nice too.
There you go, yeah.
But if your editing rig and your gaming rig are the same thing, there's a good chance that you have like a gaming mouse of some kind. And if you play MMOs, you might have like MMO buttons, thumb buttons on your mouse, and that can be a real good productivity booster to just take your most used hotkeys and put them on your mouse.
Like the Hydra or whatever?
Yeah, a Hydra, or I've got a SteelSeries 850, which has like 6 or 7 thumb buttons.
Yep.
And it's just, anywhere that you have a button, you can turn that into a thing that makes your editing work better.
Yeah, I have a Corsair Saber, which only has 2 thumb buttons, but one of them is my mute myself on Discord, and the other one is my start recording in OBS. And those have come in handy so often because it's like the tab out of the game.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, someone's
If you're doing streaming or anything like that, and you're on the fly, like say you're live broadcasting, having shortcut keys is a godsend, because you don't want to be, especially if you don't have like 6 different monitors where you can monitor your OBS stuff, your stream itself, or whatever. If you're only on one monitor, you're going to be switching alt-tabbing a lot, which gamers can tell you, alt-tabbing a lot can cause you lots of problems.
Some games are really great with it.
Some games are great, but some games will crash as soon as you try to alt-tab, especially if you've got other programs open.
Don't alt-tab out of Gary's account.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't alt-tab out of anything like made by an indie developer.
Or Bethesda.
or
Bethesda.
Just,
Yeah, the
don't
AAA indie developer.
put Bethesda games on your hard drive, you're going to crash again.
We got a question over here.
Yes, sir.
Kind of a niche question, but I find that generally probably the slowest part of my editing process is when I try to do something like use the subtitle maker in Adobe, anything involving kind of subtitles or text on screen,
Yeah.
like send text in a message sequence on screen. Do you have any suggestions on how to speed that up, or
How to speed up the subtitling process in editing? We have all been looking to the answer to that question for years.
That kind of falls into the realm of actually my other story from that class I took. Because unfortunately, that is render time.
It's render time, and it's also like processing time, and it's also time spent writing the stuff out, positioning it. If you want to have it animated, the short answer is there's no clear-cut way to do that. I have not, in my years, found a tool that does it reliably well. Typically, like big companies that get into closed captioning or subtitling and everything, they will have a department for that sort of thing. Like where I work, they have a captioning department.
It's busy work.
And it's just busy, it's just typing and busy work and whatever, but those are usually people who are fluent in languages, fluent in word processing and whatnot. They will do the scripts and write out everything, and then they'll save it as an XML, give it to the editors, and the editors can process it in. So my advice would be, if you don't have the time to do it yourself, find somebody who's good at typing and good at language and whatnot, and have them do it for you, and then import it into your editing process.
But if you are just doing like pop-up subtitles, that's a gimmick on my review videos. And something that saves me a little bit of time is I've made like template versions of 3-second and 4-second subtitles, so I can just grab those, put them in. At least that's saving me the work of having to take the the generic text thing that's in the system and then cutting the front and back off. So everything I pull it in, everything's ready to go. I fill in the words, then I have to render it. My little story is, in this class, I was in a group project with a bunch of people, and I was just doing the editing. so I was not on creative, and they wanted me to just pile on the filters, make it look like, because I shot it
20% cooler.
I shot it in HD, and by the time it was done, it looked like it was on like a VHS tape someone had soaked in dye. And so when they wanted to see one of these changes, I don't know, because I was like, can you guys sit down with me for one of these editing sessions to tell me what you want? And then when they did, the whole team didn't have very much interest in this stuff aside from like the finished project.
That's what clients are.
They asked me to put in this stuff. This is a class project even, which is the worst because I had to do it. They asked me to do all these changes, and I'm like, all right. So I go to render, and after 2 seconds, they're like, why can't we watch it yet? And I'm like, well, it's rendering. And so they're like, well, can you speed it up? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, we'll ask the prof because he knows.
Oh.
And the prof was like my one little solace in this group project. So he comes over and he's like, what's up? And they're like, this is what they said. Is there some way we could maybe like get a better editing program where we don't have to render stuff? The prof gave me the prof knew that I was the one person in class who was already kind of getting into editing.
Yeah.
He gave me one of the most communicative looks of like
a Jim from
don't
The Office kind of
it was a don't worry, no matter what happens, you're getting an A. I can see that you're putting up with like the literal nightmare freelance scenario, and this is just a class project.
Yeah.
So he was just like, and then he turned back to them and he's like, unfortunately not yet.
If you're getting into doing freelance editing, though, you will have clients that approach you with those kind of questions. And you know, as funny as that story was, you need to learn how to answer that question.
The easiest answer is, if you want, like, you can't skip render time the same way you can't skip paint drying. You've got to wait for paint to dry. Like, there's ways to speed that up, and you can speed up render time, but you can't nullify it because there's no such thing as paint that just is on the canvas.
Right.
That's a Sharpie.
And rendering is the wettest paint that you'll ever
Oh my God.
Rendering always, life is short, rendering is not.
And you can still touch it and all.
Here's a like tip though for when rendering is happening. You can start work on something else.
Yeah.
Not on the same machine though.
It depends. I can do it on my machine because I spent a lot of money on it. But
those of us who haven't spent a lot of money.
But I mean, like,
well, you can film, right?
Yeah, you can film. You can record on a different machine. You can take out your small, crappy laptop that you use for word processing and start a new script.
Get a glass of water, eat food.
If you go to bed,
if you've got to
go to the gym,
go to bed.
Go to bed.
Yeah, overnight renders, man. They have saved me so much for like, you've got big heavy stuff. If you've got like a big heavy project and you know it's going to take several hours to render, hit render, turn your monitor off, make sure your machine is not set to like power down in sleep mode, then go out or do something else for however long. Go the rest of your day.
I used to do those all the time back when I was using a completely legitimate version of Adobe Creative Suite 6.
Yeah. Legitimate.
I have a student copy.
It's like my legitimate copy of Power Director.
Exactly. So back when I was using CS6, I would frequently run into all-night renders, and as soon as I jumped to Creative Cloud, the addition of GPU-assisted rendering and just general tweaks they made to their rendering software made it move like 4 times faster.
Well, it like quietly render stuff while you're doing things, right? Like as much as it can do with that.
That's those cache files, though, that we were talking about earlier. It hides in there. There was a question over here.
I was just going to say on the topic of overnight renderings, they're really useful when they actually work, but I've also run into a lot of Murphy's Law situations.
Yeah, if the render crashes halfway through, then you've lost the night.
I once had a render crash 5 minutes after I walked away from the machine to do something else, and I came back 8 hours later. And I saw the time, and I was
stamps there.
Once again, I took it aside, and I went like,
why did you do this?
And
your family.
And crash logs are never as useful as you want them to be.
No, they're not.
It crashed.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, it crashed. Better watch the render to find out why.
I can say I have been a video editor for about 5 years now, and professionally for about 2 years. In all my time using the same program, I have never seen any other error message in Premiere from a crashed render aside from error and error occurred.
The error program that they give is so informative.
The thing is,
you don't want a mistake to occur.
Right. If they knew it was what was happening, they could fix it.
Yeah. I know what's happening now. I know when each of my different types of crashes, like, oh, it's the thing where I need to just nest all these together and that magically fixes it. There's a lot of really dumb tweaks that you'll find.
You can bang your head against the wall a lot trying to send crash. Like whoever has actually hit that button when it comes up, do you want to send a crash report to the makers of this software?
Well,
I
think that most of the reason why people don't send that is because most people don't have legit copies.
The thing is, like, Adobe almost doesn't care about, like, they care about piracy, obviously. That's why they've got the subscription service, which is great. Like, if you're a mid-tier, or like a content creator who makes $50 a month, which isn't that hard on YouTube. No. If you make $50 a month on YouTube, you can channel that into a Premiere subscription or a Creative Cloud subscription.
ConBravo do not support piracy.
We do not support piracy, but if you're not making money at this, then get a free trial and then just
keep it free.
Just
free
keep
trial.
It free. But the thing is, like, Adobe understands that a lot of hobbyists are just going to take their stuff and just use it, right? And it's kind of like how WinRAR just asks you to buy it.
It's very polite.
I mean, you do have to turn off access to Adobe's authentication servers. Which is easy. Like, you can do that in your firewall, and they know that. But I mean, the fact that you're learning it means you're a potential customer in the future. And they're not going to be upset if you send them a crash report from something, because nobody sends them crash reports. And it helps them actually figure out what's going wrong.
There's a good metric for that is how many of us are currently paying for any of our editing software right now? And how many of us started out maybe not doing that?
When I went to school, one of my teachers in his editing class, when it came to software, he said one reason why Vegas is great is because it's very easy to pirate. And the first time I did a fan media panel at TFCon, that was one of my bullet points about Vegas. was Vegas is fine, especially because you can probably steal it. And then I felt a little bad about that.
I've noticed they have a lot of sales now compared to when they before.
Well, Vegas, Sony cut a deal with Steam. That's why you see Vegas pop up in the Steam sales.
It's owned by Magix now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Magix cut a deal with Steam.
Isn't Magix like a division of Sony or something like that?
I'm pretty sure Magic owns Vegas now. Just brand,
But Sony's probably like, you still see the Sony logo pop up on it. So they probably still have, like, they had the Big Daddy Overlord still have their fingers in that pie.
But like they even have, you don't need to get like Magic's Vegas Pro or whatever. Like they have their like lower end model of that that's cheaper. Studio. Right.
I bought it for like $15.
Exactly. Like it's not expensive, and you don't need all the bells and whistles that Pro has.
No, especially if you're doing what you guys are likely going to be doing, like fan stuff, Let's Plays, podcasts, whatever, starting up stuff.
And then, like we were trying to show at the beginning, even something like fancy with a bunch of robots combining, you can still do it just by cutting stuff. Like this is still the essence of editing. Is like
timeline editing.
Yeah, you just want to be able to cut the front and back off of footage. Sometimes the middle. And that's why, like, even Steve mentioned this yesterday. If you're shooting on your phone, you can get like iMovie or Premiere for your phone, and the main thing it does is it lets you do that simple cut and slice editing on your phone, which can, in and of itself, be a powerful tool just to bring you up that next step.
It's like you see all these crazy timelines from like AMV creators or whatever who are doing all these stupid effects in After Effects, and you see people throwing crazy motion graphics into all of their videos because they want to be the next Captain Christian or whatever. And you see all these crazy timelines, but ultimately 99% of your editing job is always just going to be like making a short clip, taking it, putting it in your timeline, and then making sure it's the right color.
And it's synced with the audio.
And that the audio syncs up.
Sync with the audio and cut in a way where there isn't this awkward 7, 8, 9 frame gap at the start where it's just you like, hey guys.
Make it, if it sounds right, then it is right. If it looks right, then it is right. And
that's a lot of the process.
Going into the last 10 minutes of this panel, we'll just reiterate some of the things we've been saying here. Like, use what you can get your hands on.
A point on that, like a lot of big movies now are using stuff like Premiere.
Absolutely.
Like Deadpool, that was edited in Premiere.
Absolutely.
So like
saves money.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad as well?
Yeah, like a lot of the big.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Suicide Squad, like,
Fine.
as much as the quality of the movie might be lacking, like it's still a competently put together piece of
were paid to
media.
edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not my bar.
I mean, like the thing about Adobe specifically is it scales from hobbyist work to enthusiast work to like low tier professionals like us to high tier professional productions, and that would be the big reason to use it is because you can get work at any of those levels if you understand
you
the
can
workflow.
scale your own workflow towards it, and then you can use it as a hobby or possibly extend into a career with it.
And it also talks to all the other Adobe Suite things that people might be using
Yeah,
for
you can round trip into Photoshop and Audacity, or not Audacity.
Audition.
Yeah.
Audition's free.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really need to, you can use Adobe Bridge to put something into Dreamweaver and put stuff from your footage on a website. I don't know.
Do people still use Dreamweaver? I don't know.
They sell it. Somebody must.
With an SEO in there, your tags and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
I had another simple edit when we were mentioning people who want to be the next like big effects guy. A lot of really cool effects, once again, can simply be done with one cut. I have an effect in this video I'll show you where I was showing the articulation of a set of 6 figures, and I didn't want to like swap them in and out.
Yeah.
So I did this thing. This is a simple hard cut trick. This is just the end of a clip into the start of another clip. Now it's a different figure.
Oh.
So all I did is I put the figure down, snatched it. Put the other figure down in the same place, snatched it, and I cut on 2 similar looking frames.
That's a bit of a camera trick, though. You have to ensure that you have
You have
like
lock
your
focus.
camera is in the same spot.
That
and
it's
have your
steady
autofocus.
and turn off your autofocus.
Yeah, that's it. The camera's on a tripod, I lock the focus, but the essence of that trick is just find the right 2 frames to match up. And you do something that, once again, people will say, oh, what After Effects trick did you do for that?
Right.
And I'm like, none.
A lot of my like workflow has been figuring out ways to not use After Effects. Because the thing is, like, if you're not coming up with a crazy motion graphic, you could probably do it with just keying I don't even remember the names.
You can like
tools I use,
stuff
but
now
just
in
like
Premiere.
crop your footage, key it, drag it around in the timeline, use the motion tween tool that's built into Premiere, and 99% of what you see people do with After Effects, unless you're creating new 3D objects or 2D objects that need to be animated in some very complicated way, you can probably do it in Premiere, and you probably don't have to go into that nightmare.
Yeah, I've just keyframed, like, when I was working on Better Living, like, just patches over things. Like, a cooking segment, guy throws a dirty cloth on a turkey, and then the turkey company's like, we don't like that, can you put the clean turkey back there? Because the shot was locked, so thank goodness we had, like, an image we could make of the clean turkey in the same angle, put it in there, and then we just had to move it with the camera every now and then. It might be simpler for some of those things to like set up a motion tracking system, but you can do it with keyframing if you just sort of get the basic tenets of like how movement works. You know, it starts and ends.
Speaking of that, you will run into clients who ask you to do stupid things.
Yes.
Like
Sometimes
put
they don't even know
collars
what they
on
want.
dogs.
Yeah.
Can you make my dog green? So he's a Hulk dog?
Not colors, collars.
Yeah, I said
Oh.
collars. Yeah, you put collars on all of these dogs, please.
Oh my God.
Share that story if you want.
I thought you said
that doesn't need to be told. We get it.
no. Did you do it? Did you do it?
They were paying me, of course.
And was it hard?
I got really good at it. Collar photoshopped on a picture of a dog, I'm your guy.
I got one of those where we had a segment where we needed to. Number one, they shot with TV cameras, but then the people with Final Edit said we wanted to look like this DSLR show that we saw on YouTube. So we created an array of vignettes and filters to make it look like there was actual depth of field. And there's already 4 layers of things. So we're like, now we have to first do a different edit that we'll then put into that 4-layer system. And that was that one of the people on screen wanted to look younger. And so we had to create a special first we had to create a filter that would get rid of a lot of his facial lines. Then we had to do an 8-point garbage mat that's an 8-point where you can change the position of the 8 points and animate them technically. And so we spent like a week following his face around in his segment, and this guy is animated. So we had to figure out tricks like, all right, don't go frame by frame because then we'll be here for a million years. So it's like, all right, just go like from the start of a motion to an end of a motion, then watch it and see if you need to tweak it.
Yeah.
So I got to know that guy's face real well, and that's a way to hate someone. If you're staring at staring at this face, and you're just getting more and more annoyed, and this is the face you see, and it's like maybe it was not even this guy's fault, but I'm just like, oh man, I want to never meet you.
Yeah. Here's another thing: if you're working for YouTube specifically, you don't have to make anything frame perfect ever. Firstly, YouTube compression is going to take away a lot of the pixel detail anyway. Yeah, and like if you're keying something and like half of your hand disappears for a frame, but it's moving.
Motion blur,
yeah. Just toss a motion blur on it, maybe, or just nobody's going to go frame by frame through your video.
Nope. Well,
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Crazy people might.
Crazy people might, but I learned that the hard way when I tried to include like a little stupid ARG thing in a Gravity Falls video I made once. Nobody's found that yet. But like, you can get away with a lot of stuff that looks kind of janky because in motion, nobody's going to notice.
If it looks right, played in real time, then you're fine.
That's the important thing. I have one more tip I wanted to throw in. I almost forgot. We're about 5 minutes out here.
Yep.
This is one for those of you who might be working with footage that's not playing nice with, whether you're using Handbrake or compressor or whatever. This is like one of the ultimate tricks, and it's going to sound real stupid, but I've used it like twice now. If you have footage that just doesn't work, try uploading it onto YouTube or on Vimeo, and then if it plays on there,
download it again.
Keep the version that plays off of there. You'll get an MP4, and you can probably use that. I've used Vimeo and YouTube to fix footage for paid work before, and I was like, thanks for the help, buddy. You're not getting any of this.
I mean, YouTube's motion compensator or whatever it's called, the camera shake fixer. It's actually really good. Yeah. Like it's really powerful. But yeah, the one other very powerful tool that you are going to want to get if you're working in any kind of online video is 4K video download. It's a free program. It lets you download anything from YouTube or almost any other website at any resolution that you need, or just the audio in sometimes higher sample rates than is actually on YouTube. I don't know how they do it, but it sounds better. It's just good. It's good.
That's the Windows-based one, right?
Yeah. It's I think it works in Linux too.
Okay. For those of us who are using Linux.
To video edit.
Strawberry pie, yeah.
A couple other programs I'm sure that we can all vouch for. Handbrake.
Handbrake. It's a good one for ripping discs as well.
Yeah, it's pretty much the go-to of converting footage that's just not playing nice with your editor for whatever reason.
Or also makes it way smaller.
Right.
Makes it way smaller. Like
If you're crunching up against the limit of your hard drive space, that's another one.
Not just hard drive space, but there's also a few. This mainly with Premiere. I don't know if Final Cut is anything like this. If you have a video file that is over 4 gigs that you try and import into Premiere that has audio, the audio will desync by the end of the video.
That depends. With Final Cut, it depends on the type of video. When I had that problem, this is a workaround I learned from work. It's weird. If I convert my footage into XDCAM P30, it works perfectly. So if I get like weird footage that like Final Cut just can't keep up with, or like Final Cut 7 has problems with DSLR footage. It has
problems with most footage that isn't ProRes.
Now I just convert everything to XDCAM P30, and it looks fine, and it edits really fast. And this is a trick I picked up from work. So now what I do is I actually convert everything to that, so that also my timeline is primarily just one codec, and that saves on a lot of render time.
Right.
Yeah, I mainly just bring that up in case any of you guys want to do longer vlogs or Let's Plays or anything like that.
If you're Let's Playing long games, like RPGs, whatever.
You're going to have the audio desync, so running with your Handbrake to get a smaller than 4 gig file size will save you a lot of headaches when you're like, why is it playing coin sounds when I'm doing nothing?
That does depend on your what camera you're using too, because like if you're doing vlogs and you have a Canon go to 7D, I think. But Canon will automatically chop your files up in 4 gigabyte chunks.
Hate it when cameras do that.
It's a pain. It can be a pain in the ass, but it can also solve problems like that. But yeah, the other thing for Handbrake is if you're, I work in anime a lot, which means that a lot of the files, anime, Japanese anime. So a lot of the files I need to work with are something called an MKV, which is a file container that allows for subtitle playback and multiple audio tracks and a few other features. It's basically like what you can do with a DVD in a single file.
It's MP4's annoying cousin if you're just a video editor.
Yeah. And Handbrake is what I use to take MKVs, which Premiere doesn't want to touch, and turn them into something I can work with. And you sometimes get crappy audio out of that, but if you're just talking over anime, it's not a problem.
So the stream audio cut out, and someone said, with any luck, the way they talk about backing up audio, I'm sure the edited version will have this info.
Fingers crossed.
That's what this is here for, and that's what that's there for.
Yeah.
With that being said, we are down to the last minutes of the panel, so if there are any last minute questions that we can really zip through real fast. If not, then we will thank you guys all for being a cool audience and all of your wonderful questions, and we will wish you guys a wonderful rest of ConBravo.
And if you can make it to Video Production 103 tomorrow, it's going to be an even longer time slot, about
2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. The subject is going to be about marketing and promotion, and I don't think we're going to need that whole time slot just about that. So if you do have any more questions about equipment, about production, about editing, anything, that Q&A is going to be a free-for-all. Ask us anything about whatever. Even like, what's your favorite anime?
Yeah, so that's
I'm really fond of Boku no Pico. Everybody here should check that out.
So thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.
In case the last
Don't actually do that.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming out.
I got my fancy card.